Relative age effect refers to the specific selection, participation, and attainment advantages which occur as a result of physical and cognitive differences with annual age group cohorts. The effect has been found across a wide range of sports and is particularly evident in pre-elite sports and team sports with high selection pressure. Birth dates are grouped into quarters. Quarter 1, September to November, Quarter 2, December to February, Quarter 3, March to May, and Quarter 4, June to August. Dividing up the age band selection cut-off into quartiles, covering the competitive and not the calendar year. There are 3 interlinked effects which also occur when relative age effect is present. The first is Matthew effect. It suggests that those who are successful are more likely to be given the opportunities that lead to further success. In sport, age group training programs and their relative age effect selection perpetuate the issue. Late enrolment of younger children allows their peers to develop skill advantages at the beginning of their careers. The second is Pygmalion effect. The greater the expectation placed on the individual, the greater the result that individual will attain. Simply, expectations can dictate outcomes. And the third, Galileo effect. The response to the Pygmalion effect. It shows that once expectations are placed on an individual, the person acts in accordance with those expectations. Put simply, if a person thinks they will succeed, they are more likely to succeed. These descriptions illustrate the range of challenges that relative age effect presents for coaches and the support network operating in talent programs. Many of the effects described are psychological, in nature, and linked to how well performers will cope when they transition through the formative years. Research across the sporting domain over a number of years has consistently revealed asymmetric birth date patterns within group selections and youth academies, according to Carling, Gall, Reilly and Williams 2009. The relative age effect is evident within team sports. Within individual sports, the effects are less consistent, but it is argued that examinations of the relative age effect in individual sports may uncover the mechanisms more precisely, because the variables that may confound the effects are easier to identify, according to Baker et al. 2014. At the age of 10, a Q4 performer has been on the planet 10% less than a Q1 performer, and could consequently be 10% less developed. In many talent identification processes, this maturity can be mistaken for ability, and the prevalence of Q1 and Q2 performers in comparison to Q3 and Q4 in age group teams is inversely weighted. The illustration of ability linked to advanced maturity is also often misinterpreted by peers, the performers, and parents. Being relatively older within sports allows the potential for a developing athlete to demonstrate a performance advantage at early identification points. It has been argued that this is owing to a physical advantage, thus demonstrating more desirable attributes. Consequently, these athletes receive more attention, better training facilities, and more training time compared with their peers. The relative age effect increases the likelihood of both performance and selection advantage. Especially in sports with a high degree of competition and selection pressure, an overrepresentation of the relatively older athletes within a cohort is usual. Q3 and Q4 athletes, on the other hand, tend to fall into a vacuum where they're overlooked simply because they are relatively younger, and thus more likely to be disadvantaged compared to their peers. One solution has been to use biobanding. Biobanding is the process of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with growth and maturation rather than chronological age, according to Cumming et al. 2017. Biobanding is not new. It was first trialled in the US high schools as far back as 1908. For years, New Zealand high schools have grouped rugby players according to weight rather than age, because Maori and Polynesian children tend to develop faster than their white counterparts. Biobanding helps late maturers who typically develop better technical skills to compensate for their lack of physicality. It also helps early developers who fail to develop technical skills as they rely on their physical attributes. Professional clubs appreciate biobanding's ability to identify late developers. Youth players who go through puberty before their peers are likely to be spotted by scouts earlier, and therefore clubs ignore the athletes who could have had the most potential down the line. The need for biobanding, however, is being debated, as by the time youth athletes transfer to adult sport, there is no longer an advantage to those born in the earlier quartiles. If anything, the advantage shifts. Award-winning athletes have been linked to this reversal advantage, with Q3 and Q4 players being represented to a greater extent, according to Ford and Williams 2011. Higher salaries have also been observed for relatively younger athletes at the performance level, according to Ashworth and Heyndels 2007. In short, the relative age effect advantage, apparent at selection and identification, seems to be reversed by the end of the development process. In fact, this notion has already been linked beyond sports environments and continues into the world of business, an area where no such physical benefits would be expected to occur. Research focused on an American stock market retail index found that CEOs clearly demonstrate the effect of being born in the summer months. Relatively younger CEOs were underrepresented compared to relatively older. Interestingly, however, although the relatively younger CEOs were underrepresented, they were actually associated with higher market valuation and better stock performance. Michael Jordan is a famous example of relative age effect and its management in action. He was not selected for the varsity team as a sophomore at age 15, but picked for junior varsity instead. The underlying facts illustrate that his coach managed his resources effectively. Jordan was a late developer and only 5'10" at the time. There was a distinct lack of height on the roster, none taller than 6'3", so taller players took his place. His coach also explained that his decisions gave Jordan more starting playing time in the season that year. This example shows how important an understanding of players and the bigger picture is. Decisions made within talent identification should be well informed for the best of the performer in question and their long-term development.